Finally, he said, turning the deadbolt with a metallic snap that echoed through the empty gym. We're alone now. Emma's hand froze on her water bottle. The weight rack suddenly felt miles away instead of steps. She'd stayed late to finish her session, something she'd done dozens of times before, but Marcus had never looked at her like this, never stood between her and the exit with that smile that didn't reach his eyes. Marcus, I should probably... You've been avoiding my texts, he said, walking closer. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across his face. 3 weeks, Emma. You can't just ignore me after what happened. Nothing happened, she said, keeping her voice steady even as her pulse hammered. You kissed me. I said no. That's it. He laughed, but there was an edge to it that made her skin crawl. That's not how I remember it. You smiled at me. You wore those leggings I like. You wanted it. Emma's grip tightened on the water bottle. She was 38 years old, a paralegal who'd spent years learning to stand her ground in courtrooms and depositions. But something about the way Marcus moved toward her, about being locked in this space with him, made her feel 17 again. Small, powerless. I'm married, she said, holding up her left hand. The gold band caught the light. To a guy who's never here. Marcus stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with sweat. I've been training you for 6 months, Emma. 6 months of watching you walk in here stressed, tired, unhappy. I see the way you light up when we talk. That means something. It means you're my trainer. That's all. Open the door, Marcus. His jaw clenched. Not until we talk about this. Not until you admit. The sound came from the far corner of the gym, from the private training room Emma had assumed was empty. A door opening. Footsteps. Marcus spun around, his cocky demeanor fracturing. What the... This floor is supposed to be closed. I reserved it. Emma looked past him and felt the air leave her lungs. The man who emerged from the training room was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and cold precision. But it was his eyes that made Emma's breath catch. Gray. Storm cloud gray. And currently fixed on Marcus with an intensity that could cut glass. The floor was closed, the man said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. I paid for privacy. Marcus straightened, trying to reclaim his authority. Look, man, I don't know who you are, but I'm a senior trainer here. I have clearance. You locked the door. It wasn't a question. The man in the suit took a step forward, and Emma noticed 2 things simultaneously. He moved with the fluid grace of someone trained in violence, and Marcus was backing up. We were having a private conversation, Marcus stammered. Those gray eyes shifted to Emma. She felt pinned beneath that gaze, seen in a way that made her feel exposed and protected all at once. Are you having a private conversation? Her mouth was dry. No. Emma, Marcus started. No, she repeated stronger this time. I asked him to open the door. He won't. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The man in the suit looked at Marcus the way someone might look at an insect they were deciding whether to crush. Open it, he said softly. Marcus's face flushed red. Who the hell do you think you are? You can't just... He didn't finish the sentence. The man moved faster than Emma would have thought possible for someone his size, crossing the space between them in 3 strides. He didn't touch Marcus. Didn't have to. He simply stood there, a wall of controlled menace, and waited. Marcus's hands shook as he fumbled with the deadbolt. The lock clicked open. He yanked the door wide, but before he could step through it, that quiet voice stopped him. Your phone. Unlock it and give it to me. What? No way, you have texts, messages you sent to Emma that she didn't answer. I want to see them. Emma's face burned. She hadn't told anyone about Marcus's messages. the increasingly aggressive texts that had started after that unwanted kiss. Her husband, Richard, was barely home anyway, always traveling for work, always too tired to listen when he did make it back. She'd planned to just switch gyms, avoid the confrontation entirely. "That's private," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its edge. The man in the suit pulled out his own phone, tapped something, and held it up so Marcus could see the screen. Emma couldn't make out the details, but whatever was on it made Marcus go pale. "Your employment contract," the man said. "With this gym and the 3 others in the city where you also work. Your apartment lease, the loan on your BMW. I'm looking at your entire life, Marcus. Now show me the texts, or I make a phone call, and by tomorrow morning, all of it disappears." "You can't. That's not possible." That cold smile again. "Test me." Marcus's hand shook as he unlocked his phone and thrust it toward the other man. Emma watched those gray eyes scan the screen, watched his jaw tighten with each downward swipe. "You can't ignore me forever," he read aloud. "I know where you live. Your husband doesn't deserve you." "You're being a tease, Emma. Just admit what you want." He looked up. 37 messages. She responded to none of them. What part of that suggested she wanted to be locked in a room with you? Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I didn't mean I thought... You thought you could intimidate a woman half your size into giving you what you wanted." The man held up the phone. "I'm keeping this. You're going to walk out of this building, drive home, and tomorrow morning, you're going to resign from every position you hold. You're going to tell your employers that you're moving cities for personal reasons. You're not going to contact Emma again. Not a text. Not a call. Not a social media message. If I hear otherwise, I won't just destroy your career. Do you understand? You can't just take my phone." The man stepped closer, whispered something in Marcus's ear that Emma couldn't hear. Marcus went white. Actually white, like all the blood had drained from his face. He stumbled backward through the open door, nearly tripping over his own feet, and disappeared down the hallway. His footsteps echoed in the stairwell, then silence. Emma realized she was gripping the weight bench so hard her knuckles had gone white. She forced herself to breathe, to relax her hands, to process what had just happened. The man in the suit turned to face her fully for the first time. Up close, she could see faint scars along his jawline, the kind that spoke of a violent past. But his eyes, those impossible gray eyes, held something she hadn't expected. Concern. "Are you all right?" The question, asked in that careful voice, broke something loose in her chest. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "Did he hurt you? Before tonight, I mean?" "He kissed me, 3 weeks ago after a training session. I pushed him away, told him I wasn't interested. But he kept..." She gestured vaguely at the space where Marcus had been standing. "The texts, showing up at the coffee shop I go to. Tonight is the first time I've been back to the gym since." "And you came late, when you thought it would be empty?" It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Yes." He nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. Then he did something that surprised her. He walked to the door and held it open. "You should go. Your car in the parking garage?" "Yes, but..." She stopped, unsure what she was even asking. "Who are you? Why did you help me? How did you make Marcus look like he'd seen a ghost?" "I'll walk you down. Make sure he's actually left." Emma grabbed her gym bag with shaking hands. As she moved toward the door, she finally found her voice. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." His expression darkened. "Nothing good." They rode the elevator in silence. Emma snuck glances at him, trying to reconcile the violence she'd sensed in him with the careful way he stood on the opposite side of the elevator, giving her space. The doors opened to the parking garage, and he gestured for her to lead the way. Her silver Honda was parked near the exit. As they approached it, Emma noticed a black Mercedes in the VIP section, sleek and expensive and probably armored, knowing what she now suspected about this man. "Can I ask you something?" she said, stopping beside her car. "You can ask." "What did you say to him? At the end when he went pale?" A muscle worked in his jaw. "I told him that if I ever saw him near you again, he wouldn't walk away. And I told him my name, so he'd know I wasn't bluffing. What is your name?" He hesitated, and in that hesitation Emma saw the calculation. Saw him deciding whether to lie, to protect her from whatever truth his name carried. Finally, he said, "Adrian. Adrian Volkov." The name meant nothing to Emma, but clearly it had meant everything to Marcus. She filed that information away, added it to the growing list of things she didn't understand about this night. "Well, Adrian Volkov, I owe you. Seriously. If there's ever anything I can do—" "Be careful," he interrupted. "Men like him, when they feel humiliated, they don't always let things go. If he contacts you, if you see him anywhere, you call the police, and—" He pulled a business card from his jacket pocket. Heavy cardstock, no company name. Just a phone number in raised silver print. "You call this number, someone will answer. Tell them you need to speak with me." Emma took the card, her fingers brushing his for just a second. The contact sent a jolt through her that she absolutely should not be feeling. She was married. This man had just saved her from a dangerous situation. Whatever this flutter in her chest was, it was just adrenaline. Had to be. "I will. Thank you again." He waited while she got in her car, started the engine, checked all her locks. Only when she'd pulled out of her parking space did he turn toward the Mercedes. Emma watched him in her rearview mirror as she drove away. This mysterious man in an expensive suit who'd appeared exactly when she needed him. The business card sat on her passenger seat the entire drive home, its silver numbers catching the streetlights. The house was dark when Emma pulled into the driveway. Richard's car wasn't there, which meant he'd extended his Chicago trip. Again, she checked her phone and found a text from him sent 4 hours ago. "Meeting running late. Staying another night. Don't wait up." She hadn't planned to. Inside, the house felt cavernous and empty. They'd bought it 3 years ago, this 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs that was supposed to be filled with children and laughter. Instead, it echoed with silence and the hum of appliances. Emma dropped her gym bag in the mudroom, poured herself a glass of wine she probably shouldn't have, and sank onto the living room couch. Her hands were still shaking. The reality of what had happened hit her in waves. Marcus, locking that door. His voice saying, "We're alone now," like it was something she should want. The way he'd backed her toward the weights, all pretense of professional boundaries gone. And then Adrian, appearing like something out of a story, dangerous and protective, and impossible. Emma pulled out the business card, ran her thumb over the raised numbers. Who had a business card with just a phone number? Who could make a man like Marcus, cocky, aggressive Marcus, who bench-pressed 300 pounds, look terrified with just a whispered name? She should Google him. Should find out exactly who Adrian Volkov was, and why his name carried so much weight. But part of her didn't want to know. Part of her wanted to preserve this one moment where a stranger had simply helped her without complication, without revelation, without the mess of reality. Her phone buzzed. Richard. "Made it to the hotel. How was your day?" Emma stared at the text. How was her day? She'd been locked in a gym by a man who'd been sexually harassing her for weeks, then saved by a stranger who might be a criminal, and her husband of 12 years wanted to know how her day was, with the same casual interest he'd ask about the weather. "Fine," she typed back. "Same as always." She didn't sleep well. When she finally drifted off around 3 a.m., she dreamed of gray eyes and locked doors, and Marcus's face going pale with fear. The next morning, Emma called in sick to work. She never called in sick. In 8 years at the law firm, she'd taken exactly 4 sick days, all of them actually sick. But she couldn't face the office, couldn't pretend to focus on depositions and case files when her mind kept replaying last night. She was halfway through her second cup of coffee when her phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart jumped. "Hello? Mrs. Emma Hartley?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Yes? My name is Sarah Chen. I'm calling from Elite Fitness corporate office. I understand you had an incident with one of our trainers last night. Emma's stomach dropped. How did you... Marcus Reynolds submitted his resignation this morning, effective immediately. In his exit interview, he mentioned a confrontation. We've launched an internal investigation, and I wanted to reach out to you directly. Would you be willing to come in and speak with our HR team? Part of Emma wanted to say no, to let the whole thing disappear. But she thought about other women, other clients Marcus might corner when the gym was empty. Yes, I'll come in. Would this afternoon work? Say 2 o'clock? They arranged the details. Emma hung up and stared at her phone, trying to figure out how Elite Fitness had connected her to Marcus's resignation so quickly. Unless Adrian. Of course, a man who could pull up someone's entire financial life on his phone in seconds could definitely make a phone call to a gym chain's corporate office. The meeting at Elite Fitness took 90 minutes. Emma recounted everything. The unwanted kiss, the texts, Marcus showing up at her coffee shop, last night's locked door. The HR director, a severe woman in her 50s named Patricia, took notes with a grim expression. I'm so sorry this happened on our premises, Patricia said when Emma finished. We take these allegations extremely seriously. Marcus's resignation doesn't end our investigation. We'll be reviewing security footage, interviewing other clients and staff members. If you'd like to pursue legal action, I just want to make sure he can't do this to anyone else, Emma said. Patricia nodded. We've flagged his file industry-wide. He won't work as a trainer again, not at any reputable facility. Which meant Adrian's threat had teeth. Marcus's entire career, gone in less than 24 hours. Emma should have felt relief. Instead, she felt unsettled. The sheer power it took to dismantle someone's life, that quickly, that thoroughly, it spoke to resources and connections that existed far outside the normal world. She was walking to her car when her phone rang again. Another unknown number. Hello? Emma Hartley? A man's voice this time, unfamiliar. Yes? My name is Detective Robert Martinez with the Philadelphia Police. I'm calling about an incident you reported involving... I didn't report anything, Emma interrupted. A pause. You didn't file a complaint about Marcus Reynolds. No, I spoke with Elite Fitness Corporate, but I never called the police. Another pause, longer this time. I see. Well, we received an anonymous tip this morning regarding Mr. Reynolds. Several of his former clients have now come forward with similar complaints. We'd like to get your statement on the record if you're willing. Emma leaned against her car, processing this. Anonymous tip. Former clients suddenly finding the courage to come forward. Someone called you about this? The tip included documentation, text messages, security footage from the gym showing, concerning behavior patterns. Whoever called us did their homework. Adrian. I'll give you a statement, Emma heard herself say. When do you need me to come in? After she hung up with Detective Martinez, Emma sat in her car for a long time. She should have felt grateful. Adrian had essentially built a case against Marcus, had ensured there would be consequences, had protected not just her, but other women she'd never met. Instead, she felt like she'd glimpsed something vast and dark beneath the surface of her ordinary life. A world where people could pull strings and topple dominoes with a few phone calls. Where gray-eyed men in expensive suits wielded power that made the legal system look quaint. She pulled out Adrian's business card again. The silver numbers gleamed in the afternoon sunlight. Before she could talk herself out of it, she dialed. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a woman answered. Yes? My name is Emma Hartley. I need to speak with Adrian Volkov. One moment. Classical music played while Emma waited. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was stupid. She should just hang up, drive home, forget. Emma. His voice deep and careful. Are you all right? Did Reynolds contact you? No, I know what you did. The gym called. The police called. Marcus resigned, and apparently there's now a criminal investigation. Silence on the other end. Then, good. You destroyed his life in less than 24 hours. I ensured he faced consequences for his actions. There's a difference. Emma laughed, but it came out shaky. Is there? How did you do it? How did you get the gym's security footage, find other victims, build an entire case overnight? I have resources. What kind of resources? Who are you, Adrian? She heard him exhale, could picture him in some expensive office somewhere, deciding how much truth to give her. Someone who doesn't like watching men hurt women. That's all you need to know. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting today. His voice softened. Why did you call, Emma? If you're all right, if Reynolds hasn't contacted you, I wanted to say thank you, properly, without a locked door and fear, and I wanted to thank you. Another pause. You already did, last night. I know, but what was she doing? Why had she really called? Emma stared at the business card in her hand, at the silver numbers that promised connection to this dangerous stranger. Thank you, that's all. You're welcome. A beat. Emma? Yes? If you ever need anything. Not just if Reynolds comes back, but anything. You call that number. Understand? Something in his voice made her throat tight. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. I know enough. He hung up before she could respond. Emma sat in her car, phone pressed to her ear, listening to the dial tone and wondering what exactly Adrian Volkov thought he knew about her. A week passed. Richard came home from Chicago, left for Denver. The law firm where Emma worked took on a new case, something complicated involving corporate mergers that required 80-hour weeks. She gave her statement to Detective Martinez. Marcus was formally charged with harassment. Elite Fitness sent her a letter offering free membership for a year and a new trainer, a kind woman named Jessica who kept appropriate boundaries and never texted after hours. Life returned to normal, or what passed for normal in Emma's world. Except she couldn't stop thinking about Adrian. She told herself it was just gratitude, just the natural aftermath of trauma making her fixate on her rescuer. But late at night, when Richard snored beside her, she'd remember those gray eyes. The way Adrian had moved, all controlled violence. The gentleness in his voice when he'd asked if she was all right. She was married, happily married, even if Richard was gone more than he was home. Even if their conversations had become perfunctory exchanges about schedules and bills. They were solid, stable, safe. So why did safe suddenly feel like a cage? Emma was working late at the office, alone in the conference room with stacks of depositions, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her pulse jumped before she could stop it. Hello? Mrs. Hartley? This is Andrea Walsh from Philadelphia Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about your husband, Richard Hartley. He's been in an accident. The world tilted. What? Is he? He's stable. He was in a car accident in Denver. They're airlifting him to our facility tonight. I wanted to let you know so you could meet him here. Emma was moving before the nurse finished speaking, gathering her things, her mind racing through logistics. Denver. Richard had been in Denver. Car accident. Stable meant alive. But what did stable mean, really? How bad was it? She made it to the hospital in 20 minutes, spent another 40 in the waiting room before a doctor came out to tell her Richard had a concussion, 3 broken ribs and a fractured wrist. He'd been T-boned by a drunk driver running a red light. Lucky to be alive. Emma sat beside Richard's hospital bed, holding his uninjured hand, and felt nothing but numbness. He slept through the night, pumped full of painkillers. Emma dozed in the chair beside him, waking every time a nurse came in to check vitals. At dawn, Richard finally opened his eyes. Em? I'm here. She squeezed his hand. You're okay. You're going to be okay. He grimaced. Hurts. I know. The doctor said you'll need a few weeks to recover. But there's no permanent damage. Richard closed his eyes again. Chicago meeting. Can't miss it. Emma stared at him. Richard, you were just in a car accident. You have 3 broken ribs. You're not going to any meeting. Important. The Peterson account can wait. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. You almost died. But I didn't. He opened his eyes, and there was irritation there beneath the pain. I'm fine. Few weeks, I'll be back to normal. Normal. Back to normal meant back to traveling. Back to late nights at the office. Back to their ships passing in the night existence. Emma thought about Marcus, backing her against the weight rack. Thought about Adrian, appearing exactly when she needed him. Thought about the last time Richard had actually asked her how she was. Really asked and waited for a real answer. She couldn't remember. I'm going to get coffee, she said, standing. Do you need anything? I'm good. Thanks for coming, Em. Thanks for coming. Like she was a friend stopping by, not his wife of 12 years who'd raced to the hospital terrified he might be dying. Emma walked to the hospital cafeteria in a daze, got coffee she didn't want, sat at a table by the window and stared at her reflection in the glass. When had they stopped being a team? When had Richard's work become the only thing that mattered? When had she started feeling like a piece of furniture in their house? Necessary, reliable, but ultimately unnoticed. Her phone buzzed. Text from Richard's boss. Heard about the accident. Tell Richard to take all the time he needs. We'll handle Denver. At least someone was being reasonable. Emma was heading back to Richard's room when she nearly collided with someone in the hallway. Strong hands steadied her, and she looked up into gray eyes. Adrian? He looked as shocked as she felt. Emma, what are you... His gaze flicked to the visitor badge on her shirt. Who's hurt? My husband. Car accident. He's okay, just... She gestured vaguely at the hospital around them. What are you doing here? Something shuddered in his expression. Visiting someone. How's your husband? Broken ribs, concussion, fractured wrist. He'll recover. Emma knew she should move, should get back to Richard's room, but she couldn't seem to make her feet work. He's already talking about going back to work. Adrian's jaw tightened. Of course he is. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I should... No. Emma surprised herself with her vehemence. You can't just say something like that and walk away. What did you mean? Adrian looked at her for a long moment. The hospital hallway bustled around them, nurses and doctors and visitors, but Emma felt like they were alone, like the world had narrowed to just the two of them in this charged silence. You called to thank me, he said finally, a week ago. Do you know what I heard in your voice? I was grateful. You were lonely. The words hit like a physical blow. I heard it that night at the gym, too. When you said you were married, there was this emptiness, like the word didn't mean what it should. Emma's throat was tight. You don't know anything about my marriage. I know your husband doesn't notice when you're scared. I know he's in a hospital bed asking about work instead of asking how you are. I know you drove here in the middle of the night, terrified, and he thanked you for coming like you did him a favor, instead of like you're the person who promised to stand beside him in sickness and health. Stop, her voice cracked. Just stop. Adrian's expression softened. I'm sorry. That was out of line. Your marriage is none of my business. Then why did you say it? He stepped closer, and Emma's breath caught. Because I've spent a week trying not to think about you. Trying to convince myself that you're just someone I helped, that the way you looked at me in that gym was gratitude and nothing more. But then I run into you here, and the first thing I notice is that you're alone. That your husband is 50 feet away, and you're out here by yourself, looking like the world just confirmed something you didn't want to believe. Emma's hands were shaking. I should go. You should, but you're not going to. He was right. God help her, he was right. Emma stood there in that hospital hallway, her husband recovering in a room down the hall, and couldn't make herself walk away from this man who saw too much, who made her feel things she had no right to feel. I'm married, she whispered. I know. This is wrong. I know that too. Then why? Because some things don't care about right or wrong. Adrian's hand came up, and for a heart-stopping moment Emma thought he might touch her face. Instead, he curled his fingers into a fist and let his arm drop. I should go. Take care of yourself, Emma. This time when he walked away, she let him, watched those broad shoulders disappear around a corner, and felt like she'd just lost something she'd never actually had. When she got back to Richard's room, he was asleep again. Emma sat in the chair beside his bed, held his hand, and tried to ignore the fact that her wedding ring suddenly felt too tight. Richard came home 3 days later. Emma took a week off work to help him, made soup and changed bandages and pretended everything was fine. He was a terrible patient, grumbling about missing meetings, trying to work from his laptop despite doctor's orders to rest. "Richard, you need to let your ribs heal," Emma said, closing his computer for the 3rd time that day. "I'm fine. It's just bruising. It's 3 broken ribs and a concussion. You're supposed to be resting, not reviewing contracts." He glared at her, but there was no real heat in it. "Since when did you become so bossy?" "Since I realized you don't actually see me," Emma thought. "Since a stranger in a gym noticed I was scared before you noticed I existed." "Since you decided recovery meant business as usual," she said instead. Richard sighed, leaning back against the couch pillows. "I'm sorry. You're right. I hate being useless." "You're not useless. You're healing." He reached for her hand, and Emma let him take it. His palm was warm and familiar, 12 years of marriage contained in that simple touch. She waited to feel something. Comfort. Connection. Anything. Instead, she felt gray eyes watching her across a hospital hallway. "Em?" Richard was looking at her with concern. "You okay? You seem distant lately?" She almost laughed. Distant. She'd been distant for years, and he was just now noticing. "I'm fine. Just tired." "Maybe you should take some time for yourself. Go to the gym, see friends. I can manage here. You have 3 broken ribs." "I can manage," he repeated. "Seriously, Em, you've been taking care of me nonstop. Take a break." Part of her wanted to argue, to point out that taking care of him was what wives did, what she'd always done. But a larger part, the part that had been growing since that night in the gym, wanted to run. To get out of this house with its empty rooms and emptier conversations. "Maybe I will," she heard herself say. "Just for a few hours." She ended up at a coffee shop, the same one where Marcus used to appear uninvited. Emma ordered a latte and found a corner table, pulled out a book she'd been meaning to read for months. She made it through 3 pages before her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart lurched. She knew it was stupid, knew it was dangerous, but she answered anyway. "Hello?" "It's me." Adrian's voice quiet and careful. "Don't hang up." "I should." "I know, but you didn't." Emma closed her eyes. "Why are you calling?" "Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Because I've picked up this phone 20 times in the last week and forced myself to put it down. Because running into you at that hospital felt like fate, giving me another chance to say what I should have said the first night. Which is, that you deserve better." Emma's breath caught. "You don't know what I deserve. You don't even know me. I know you're brilliant. I know you're scared, but you don't let that fear stop you from being brave. I know you stay in a marriage that makes you feel invisible because you made a promise, and you're the kind of person who keeps promises even when they cost you everything. How could you possibly? I had you investigated." The words hung in the air between them. Emma should have been angry, should have been outraged at the invasion of privacy. Instead, all she felt was a strange sort of relief. "Of course you did. I needed to know if I was reading this wrong, if I was projecting something that wasn't there. So, I looked into your life, Emma. Your marriage, the way your husband travels 300 days a year. The way you show up at his company events and smile and play the perfect wife while he networks and forgets you're even there. The way you've been trying to get pregnant for 3 years, but he's never home long enough to—" "Stop!" Her voice cracked. "Just stop." "I'm sorry. God, Emma, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have—" "No, you're right." The admission felt like broken glass in her throat. "You're absolutely right. Richard and we're not happy. Haven't been for years. But that doesn't mean— I'm not asking you to leave him." Emma blinked. "You're not?" "I'm asking you to have coffee with me. 1 hour. If you hate it, if you want me to disappear, I will. You'll never hear from me again. But if you give me that hour, I promise I'll make you feel seen. She should say no. Should hang up, block this number. Focus on fixing what was broken in her marriage instead of running towards something that could only end badly. When? She heard herself ask. Now. I'm parked outside. Emma's head snapped up. Through the coffee shop window, she could see a black Mercedes idling at the curb. Adrian stood beside it, phone pressed to his ear, gray eyes locked on hers through the glass. You followed me here. I've been following you all week, making sure you're safe, making sure Reynolds didn't try anything. A pause. Making sure you're okay. Emma stood on shaking legs, walked to the window. Adrian's gaze tracked every step, hungry and careful all at once. This is crazy, she said into the phone. Probably. I'm married. I know. 1 hour. That's all I'm asking. Emma hung up, gathered her things. Walked out of the coffee shop and stopped 3 feet from where Adrian stood beside his car. Up close, in daylight, he was even more devastating. Sharp cheekbones, full mouth, that impossible gray gaze that made her feel stripped bare. Hi, she said stupidly. Hi. His lips quirked. Want to take a drive? She should say no. Should turn around, go home to Richard, pretend this moment never happened. Instead, she said, yes. Adrian opened the passenger door. Emma slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly mortgage. The car smelled like him. Expensive cologne and something darker, more dangerous. He drove them to a park overlooking the river. They walked a tree-lined path in silence, and Emma tried to remember the last time Richard had taken her somewhere just to spend time together. Tried and couldn't. Tell me about your work, Adrian said finally. So she did. Told him about the law firm, about depositions and motions, and the endless grind of paralegal work. He listened like every word mattered, asked questions that proved he was actually paying attention. You're good at it, he said. Reading people, finding the truth in what they're not saying. It's basically what I do all day. Take statements, find inconsistencies. Is that what you wanted when you were younger? Emma laughed. God, no. I wanted to be a journalist. Investigative reporting, uncovering corruption, speaking truth to power. Very idealistic. What changed? Reality. Student loans, the newspaper industry collapsing. Richard got his job offer right out of business school, and it made sense for me to find something stable. She kicked at a pebble on the path. 12 years later, here I am. Do you ever think about going back to it? The journalism? Sometimes, but it's not practical. We have a mortgage, car payments, Richard's career. She trailed off. Why am I telling you this? Because I asked. Because I actually want to know. Adrian stopped walking, turned to face her. Emma, your husband is recovering from a car accident, and you can't name a single thing about him that makes you happy. That's not a marriage. That's a contract. Tears burned her eyes. It's not always like this. When we first met, 12 years ago, people change, relationships change. There's no shame in admitting you've grown apart. Is that what you tell yourself? When you, she gestured vaguely at him, do whatever it is you do? Something dark flickered across his face. What do you think I do? I think you're dangerous. I think your name made Marcus look like he'd seen death. I think you can pull strings that normal people don't even know exist. I think... She took a breath. I think you're involved in something illegal. Adrian didn't deny it. Does that scare you? Yes. Good. You should be scared. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would horrify you. But I'm honest about what I am. Which is? Someone who takes what he wants. Someone who doesn't apologize for it. He stepped closer, and Emma's pulse jumped. And right now, what I want is you. The words hung between them, electric and impossible. Emma knew she should leave, should run, should choose her safe, familiar life over this dangerous stranger who made her feel alive for the first time in years. "I should go," she whispered. "Your hour isn't up yet." "Adrian, tell me you don't feel this. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't feel what I feel, and I'll take you back to your car right now. You'll never hear from me again." Emma opened her mouth, closed it, tried to summon the lie, and couldn't. "I'm married," she said instead. "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give." Adrian's jaw clenched. For a moment she thought he might argue, might push. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Okay, come on, I'll take you back." The drive back to the coffee shop was silent. Adrian pulled up beside Emma's Honda, put the car in park. She reached for the door handle, then stopped. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I do feel it. Whatever this is, I feel it too." When she looked at him, Adrian's eyes were storm dark with something that made her breath catch. "Then leave him." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I made a promise. Because 12 years means something. Because—" She struggled for words that made sense. "Because I don't know how to be the person who gives up. There's a difference between giving up and knowing when something is over. Maybe. But I need to figure that out on my own. Not because a beautiful stranger tells me I deserve better." Adrian's lips quirked. "You think I'm beautiful?" Despite everything, Emma laughed. "You know you are." "Say my name." "What?" "You called me a stranger. We're not strangers anymore, Emma. Say my name." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Adrian." Again. "Adrian." This time it came out breathless. He leaned closer, and Emma's entire world narrowed to those gray eyes, to the heat radiating off his body, to the way his gaze dropped to her mouth. "If you were mine," he said softly, "you'd never doubt whether you were seen. Never wonder if you mattered. You'd be the first thought I had waking up and the last one before I slept. Adrian, but you're not mine, so I'm going to let you go." He reached past her, opened the passenger door. "For now." Emma fled, got in her Honda on shaking legs and drove home without looking back, even though every cell in her body screamed at her to turn around. When she got home, Richard was asleep on the couch, his laptop still open beside him. Emma stood in the doorway of their living room and looked at the man she'd married, really looked at him for the first time in years. He was handsome still, in that clean-cut, business-casual way, reliable, successful, safe. Safe. The word felt like a prison. Emma went upstairs, crawled into bed fully clothed, and cried until she had nothing left. She lasted 2 weeks. 2 weeks of pretending everything was fine, of helping Richard recover, of going to work and coming home and cooking dinners they ate in silence while he scrolled through his phone. 2 weeks of not calling Adrian, of trying to convince herself that what she felt was just a moment of weakness, a symptom of a bad marriage, not something real. Then Richard's ribs healed enough for him to travel. He came home from his follow-up appointment grinning. "Doctor cleared me for work. I can make the Seattle conference next week." Emma looked up from the legal brief she'd been reviewing. "Already? You just got the cast off your wrist 2 days ago." "It's fine. I can type. And this conference is huge, Em. Peterson will be there. If I can close this account." "Of course." She heard the flatness in her own voice. "Go to Seattle." Richard's smile dimmed. "You could come with me. Make it a vacation. Seattle's beautiful this time of year." "I have work." "Take time off. We never go anywhere together anymore." "Because you're never here," Emma wanted to scream. "Because the last vacation we took was 3 years ago, and you spent half of it on conference calls. Because I'm tired of being the person who waits at home while you live your life somewhere else." "Maybe next time," she said instead. Richard studied her for a long moment. "Em, are we okay? You've been different since the accident." "I'm fine." "You don't seem fine." "You seem angry." Angry. She wasn't angry. She was drowning. She was suffocating in a marriage that had become a habit instead of a partnership. She was terrified because a dangerous stranger had shown her more genuine interest in 2 conversations than her husband had shown in 2 years. "I'm tired, Richard. That's all." He didn't push, just nodded, kissed her forehead the way he might kiss a child, and went back to planning his Seattle trip. That night, alone in their bed while Richard stayed up late prepping for meetings, Emma pulled out her phone, stared at Adrian's number. "Don't," the sensible part of her brain warned. "This is how affairs start. This is how lives implode." But the rest of her, the part that had felt alive in that park by the river, didn't care about sensible. She texted, "Are you awake?" The response came in seconds. "For you? Always." Emma's hands shook as she typed, "Can we talk?" "Yes." "Are you home?" "Yes, but Richard, I'll call you in 5 minutes. Go somewhere private." Emma slipped downstairs to the home office, closed the door. Exactly 5 minutes later, her phone rang. "Hi," she breathed. "Hi." Adrian's voice wrapped around her like smoke. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. What was she doing?" "Richard's going to Seattle next week, for a conference." "How long?" 5 days. Silence. Then, "Emma, why are you telling me this?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you," she wanted to say. "Because my marriage is a corpse we're both too afraid to bury. Because when you said I deserved to be seen, it was the first time in years someone had actually looked at me." "I don't know," she whispered. "I shouldn't have called." "Don't hang up." "Adrian, please, just talk to me, about anything. Tell me about your day." So she did. Told him about work, about a case she'd been researching, about the partner at the firm who kept taking credit for her ideas. Adrian listened, asked questions, made her laugh with dark observations about office politics. They talked for 2 hours, about everything and nothing. About Emma's dreams of journalism, Adrian's childhood in Russia, before his family moved to Philadelphia. He was careful with details about his work, but she pieced together enough to confirm her suspicions. He was involved in organized crime, high up in an organization that controlled everything from legitimate businesses to less savory enterprises. She should have been terrified. Should have hung up and called the police. Instead, she felt more comfortable than she had in years. "I should let you sleep," Adrian said finally. "I'm not tired." "Liar. You yawned 3 times in the last 10 minutes. His voice dropped, went soft. "Emma?" "Yes?" "When Richard goes to Seattle, have dinner with me. A real dinner. Just us." Every warning bell in her head went off. That's a bad idea. Probably the worst idea I've ever had. But I don't care. Do you? Emma thought about Richard, packing for another business trip. Thought about coming home to an empty house again. Thought about the rest of her life stretching out like this, an endless series of solitary dinners and perfunctory phone calls, and loneliness disguised as marriage. "No," she said. "I don't care either." "Then say yes. Yes." She could hear his smile through the phone. "I'll pick you up next Thursday at 7. Adrian, whatever you're about to say, don't. Not tonight. Tonight, just let this be simple." Nothing about this was simple, but Emma was so tired of complicated, of overthinking, of doing the right thing while her life slipped away. "Okay," she whispered. "Simple." They hung up. Emma sat in the dark office, phone pressed to her chest, and tried to remember the last time she'd felt this terrified and alive all at once. Upstairs, Richard was still working, oblivious to the fact that his wife had just agreed to dinner with another man. Emma knew she should feel guilty, should feel like she was betraying her vows. Instead, all she felt was anticipation. The week crawled by. Richard left for Seattle on Wednesday, kissing Emma goodbye with the same distracted affection he always showed. "I'll call you when I land. Love you." "Love you too," she said automatically, and hated herself a little for how easily the words came, how meaningless they'd become. Thursday arrived. Emma called in sick again, spent the day alternating between panic and excitement. She changed outfits 4 times, finally settling on a simple black dress that was elegant without being too obvious. Richard never noticed when she dressed up anyway, but Adrian noticed everything. At 6:50, her doorbell rang. Emma's hands shook as she grabbed her purse, checked her reflection one last time. She looked nervous, guilty, beautiful. She opened the door. Adrian stood on her porch in a dark suit, holding a single white rose. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then his eyes traveled from her face, down to her heels and back up, slow and deliberate. "You're stunning," he said. Emma took the rose with shaking fingers. "Thank you. Ready?" No, she wasn't ready. This was insane, dangerous, wrong. But she said, yes, and let him lead her to the Mercedes. He drove them to a restaurant Emma had never heard of, the kind of place that didn't need signs because the right people already knew about it. Inside, the maitre d' greeted Adrian by name, led them to a private room with a view of the city lights. "You own this place, don't you?" Emma said as Adrian held her chair. "I own several restaurants. This one's my favorite." He sat across from her, and even that simple action was fluid, predatory. "Is this okay? Too much?" "It's perfect." And it was. The room, the attention, the way Adrian was looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "I can't remember the last time someone took me somewhere like this. Your husband doesn't..." "Richard takes me to business dinners where I smile and make small talk with his colleagues. This is different." "This is about you," Adrian said simply. "Everything tonight is about you." Dinner was incredible. Multiple courses, each more delicious than the last, paired with wine that probably cost more than Emma's car payment. But the food was background noise. What mattered was the conversation, the way Adrian asked about her dreams and actually listened to the answers. "So, if you could do anything," he said over dessert, "no limitations, what would it be?" "Investigative journalism. I told you that. No, I mean right now. Today. If I handed you unlimited resources and connections, what story would you chase?" Emma considered. "There's this senator, Briggs. He's been blocking environmental legislation for years, but his voting record doesn't match his campaign promises. I'd want to know why, who's paying him, what he's hiding." Adrian's eyes gleamed. "Interesting choice. It's probably nothing, just a hunch." "Your hunches are usually right, aren't they?" He pulled out his phone, tapped something. "Give me 3 days." "For what?" "To get you everything on Senator Briggs, financial records, phone logs, meeting schedules, all of it." Emma stared at him. "You can't just... That's illegal. Multiple felonies, probably." "I can, and it is. So?" He leaned forward. "Do you want the information or not?" She should say no. Should be horrified that he was offering to commit crimes for her. Instead, she felt a thrill run through her. Yes. God help me. Yes. Adrian's smile was wicked. There she is. What? The woman you're supposed to be. Fearless. Hungry. Not hiding behind someone else's dreams. Tears pricked Emma's eyes. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're wasted in that paralegal job. I know you're brilliant and brave, and you've spent years making yourself small to fit into a life that doesn't deserve you. I know." He stopped himself. "I'm sorry. I'm pushing." "No, you're right. About all of it." Emma wiped her eyes, laughed shakily. "God, I'm crying in the middle of this beautiful restaurant. Very smooth." Adrian reached across the table, took her hand. His touch sent electricity straight through her. "Emma, look at me." She did. Those gray eyes held hers, intense and gentle all at once. "I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear it. Can you do that?" She nodded. "You deserve to be happy. Not content, not comfortable, happy. And if your marriage isn't giving you that, if you wake up every day feeling invisible, then staying isn't noble. It's just slow suicide." It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You stay or you leave. Everything else is just fear talking. Emma pulled her hand back. You're one to talk. Have you ever been married? Ever tried to unravel 12 years of shared history and joint bank accounts and promises made to family members? It's easy to say just leave when you've never had to do it. You're right. Adrian sat back. I've never been married. Never wanted to be, because I've seen too many people trap themselves in cages made of obligation. But I've also never felt about anyone the way I feel about you, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. The air between them went electric. Emma's heart hammered. Adrian, I'm in love with you, Emma. I know it's insane. We've spent maybe 10 hours together total, but I've never been more certain of anything. The world tilted. You can't just... I know you're scared. I know this is fast. I know I'm asking you to blow up your entire life for something that might not work out. But I also know that every second I spend with you feels right in a way nothing else ever has. And I think you feel it too. She did. God, she did. But admitting it felt like stepping off a cliff. I need time, she whispered. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Except he was wrong, because at that exact moment the door to their private dining room opened, and Richard stood there, face white with shock. Emma! The world stopped. Emma shot to her feet, heart in her throat. Richard, what are you... You're supposed to be in Seattle. The conference got canceled. I came home to surprise you. His eyes moved from Emma to Adrian, who had stood as well, expression carefully neutral. Who the hell is this? Richard, you can explain why you're having dinner with another man? In a private room? While I'm out of town? Richard's voice was rising, and Emma could see other diners starting to look through the open door. Adrian stepped forward and Emma saw murder flash across his face before he controlled it. You must be the husband. I don't give a damn who you are. Richard turned to Emma. We're leaving, now. Don't talk to her like that, Adrian said, his voice deadly quiet. Excuse me, this is my wife. I'll talk to her however I want. Adrian moved fast, getting between Richard and Emma. No, you won't. You'll treat her with respect or you'll deal with me. Richard's face flushed. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. Your wife is a remarkable woman. The fact that you've spent 12 years not noticing that is your failure, not hers. Adrian, don't, Emma said, touching his arm. The contact made him tense, made Richard's eyes narrow. You're sleeping with him. Richard's voice had gone flat. My God, Emma, how long has this been going on? Nothing's going on. We're just what? Having cozy dinners while I'm traveling? Is this why you've been so distant? You've been cheating? Anger flared in Emma's chest. I've been distant? Richard, you've been gone more than you've been home for 3 years. You don't ask about my day. You don't notice when I change my hair or buy new clothes or cry myself to sleep because I'm so lonely I could scream. But sure, I'm the problem. Richard flinched like she'd slapped him. That's not fair. I work. I provide for us. I don't need a provider. I need a partner. I need someone who actually sees me. And he does? Richard gestured at Adrian. Some stranger? He's not a stranger anymore. And yes, he does. In 2 conversations, Adrian's shown more interest in who I am than you have in 2 years. Emma, Richard's voice cracked. Are you seriously doing this? Throwing away our marriage for what? Some midlife crisis fling? Adrian spoke before Emma could. She deserves better than being someone's afterthought. If you can't see that, you don't deserve her. Richard lunged at him. Adrian sidestepped easily, caught Richard's arm, and twisted it just enough to make him gasp in pain. Don't, Adrian said softly. Your ribs just healed. Be smart. Let him go, Emma said. Adrian released Richard immediately, stepping back. Richard cradled his arm, breathing hard. I want a divorce, Emma heard herself say. Both men turned to stare at her. She was shaking, adrenaline and terror and relief flooding through her all at once. "Emma, you don't mean that," Richard said. "I do. I should have said it years ago. We're not happy, Richard. We haven't been for a long time. We just kept pretending because it was easier than admitting we made a mistake. This is because of him," Richard pointed at Adrian. "He's manipulating you. No, he's just the catalyst. This has been broken for years, and you know it." Richard's face crumpled. For a moment Emma saw the man she'd married, the one who'd promised her forever and actually meant it. But that man had disappeared somewhere between business trips and professional ambition, and Emma was done mourning him. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "I really am, but I can't do this anymore." Richard looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, turned, and walked out. Emma stood there, shaking, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. Adrian touched her shoulder gently. "Are you okay?" "I just ended my marriage in a restaurant." She laughed, high and a little hysterical. "No, I'm not okay. Do you regret it?" Did she? Emma thought about going home to that empty house, to Richard's wounded silence, to years more of the same slow suffocation. No, God help me, no. Adrian pulled her into his arms. Emma went stiff with shock for a moment, then melted into him, letting herself be held while the world spun around her. He was solid and warm and safe in a way she'd been craving for years. "What do I do now?" she whispered against his chest. "Now you let me take you home. You sleep. Tomorrow you call a lawyer. And the day after that, you start figuring out who Emma Hartley is when she's not trying to make everyone else happy." It sounded so simple, so terrifying, so perfect. "Will you stay?" she heard herself ask. "Tonight, I mean. I don't want to be alone." Adrian pulled back just enough to look at her face. "Emma, I will do whatever you need. But you should know, if I stay tonight, I'm not leaving tomorrow, or the day after, or ever, if you'll have me. I don't do halfway." Her heart was racing. "I just left my husband 30 seconds ago. This is insane." "Completely insane? I don't even know your last name." "Volkov. Adrian Volkov. My family runs most of the organized crime on the East Coast. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've hurt people, killed people, when necessary. If you're with me, you're part of that world, and that world is dangerous." He was giving her an out, being honest about exactly what she'd be choosing. Emma should have been terrified, should have run. Instead, she stood on her toes and kissed him. Adrian went still for half a heartbeat. Then his arms tightened around her, and he kissed her back with an intensity that made her knees weak. It was nothing like the gentle, perfunctory kisses she'd shared with Richard. This was claiming, possessive, a promise and a threat wrapped together. When they finally broke apart, Emma was breathing hard. "Take me home." Your home or mine? She thought about the house she'd shared with Richard, the rooms full of memories and disappointment. "Yours." Adrian's smile was pure triumph. "Let's go." 6 months later. Emma stood in the kitchen of Adrian's penthouse, reviewing documents spread across the marble counter. Senator Briggs's financial records, just like Adrian had promised. She'd spent weeks following the money, piecing together a web of corruption that would bring down not just Briggs, but half a dozen other politicians. Her article was set to publish tomorrow in the Washington Post, her first byline in a major paper, the beginning of everything she'd dreamed about. Still working? Adrian appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She leaned back into him, feeling the solid warmth of his chest against her back. "Just triple-checking everything. My editor wants to make sure it's airtight before we go to print." "It's airtight. You're brilliant." He kissed her neck, and she shivered. "Come to bed." "In a minute." "Emma," his voice went firm. "You've been staring at those documents for 4 hours. Come to bed." She turned in his arms. 6 months. and she still wasn't used to the way he looked at her, like she was the center of his universe. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Richard had tried to fight it at first, but Adrian had made some calls, and suddenly Richard became very agreeable about the settlement. Emma probably should have felt guilty about that. She didn't. "I love you," she said, reaching up to touch Adrian's face. His expression softened. "I love you too. Now come to bed before I carry you there. You wouldn't dare." He raised an eyebrow. Then, in one smooth motion, he scooped her up. Emma shrieked with laughter as he carried her down the hallway. "Adrian, put me down!" "Nope, you've been working too hard. Time to relax." He deposited her on the bed, and Emma was still laughing when he kissed her. The kiss started gentle, but quickly turned heated. When they finally came up for air, Emma was breathless. "Marry me," Adrian said. Emma froze. "What?" "Marry me." He reached into his nightstand, pulled out a small velvet box. "I was planning something elaborate, a whole romantic production, but screw it. I want you to be my wife, Emma. I want everyone to know you're mine. Say yes." The ring was stunning, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, unique and perfect. Emma's hands shook as she looked from the ring to Adrian's face. "We've only been together 6 months. I knew after 2 hours. The rest was just confirming what I already felt. Your family, your world, it's dangerous. You said so yourself." "It is, but I'd burn it all down before I let anything happen to you. You're the only thing that matters, Emma. You and this life we're building together." Emma thought about Richard, about their careful, safe, suffocating marriage. Thought about the woman she'd been then. Small, invisible, afraid. She wasn't that woman anymore. "Yes," she said. "Yes. I'll marry you." Adrian's whoop of joy was completely undignified for a Mafia boss. He slid the ring onto her finger, kissed her so hard they both fell back onto the bed, and Emma laughed until her sides hurt. Later, wrapped in Adrian's arms, Emma thought about the gym where this had all started. Marcus, locking that door. Adrian appearing exactly when she needed him. It felt like a lifetime ago, instead of months. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian murmured against her hair. "About how I almost didn't call you. That day at the coffee shop. I almost talked myself out of it. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Good." He tightened his arms around her. "Because I'm never letting you go, Emma Volkov to be. You're mine now, forever." She should have protested the possessiveness, should have insisted she belonged to herself. But Emma just smiled and pressed closer to the dangerous man who'd saved her from a life half-lived. "Forever," she agreed, and for the first time in years, she actually believed it.